It's now time to take a look at the Chaos Forces and see which ones should be joining your side. There is a meager 20 Chaos characters at the time of the video, so let's see who makes the top 10. And again, this is no dirty dozen, it's just 10 of the most versatile and impressive Chaos characters in the game that you will want to be leveling up. In at number 10, and it's a new entry, Corrodius, and this filthy Noxus Blightbringer just scrapes into the top 10 because of the simple fact that the Chaos faction is woefully underrepresented in Tacticus right now. We barely have enough characters to put together this top 10, and if we did a best of the best, I wonder just how many would even make it. It's a terrible situation, and I feel the Chaos Gods must be maneuvering every day to change it. I certainly wouldn't want to be a member of the Snowprint team while this heresy of a situation is still ongoing. But if we turn our attention to Corrodius, we can see him here as one of the top spawning characters for the Chaos team. As a Death Guard faction member, he of course comes equipped with the Contagions and Nurgle trait. That means that due to their absolute stench, they can strip the very armour of nearby champions, as well as making your eyes water worse than cutting rotten onions. Alongside this, like many of his Death Guard brothers, he also has the Resilient trait, which means that the first time he's going to die in a turn, he instead survives with 1 health unless he's overkilled. In terms of his passive, it isn't that interesting, as it simply adds 1 movement to nearby allies, as well as doing a tickle of psychic damage to any nearby psychers each time they deal psychic damage to someone. I guess the mental image of Corrodius ringing his little bell in the showers is too much even for someone trained in the warp. Now, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that Corrodius is the best champion in the game, but he does have one unique ability that can actually turn some battles around. He spawns in Poxwalkers, who are festering creatures that turn anything they kill into another Poxwalker, and they really do hit hard, so it isn't completely unfeasible for there to be a whole horde of these things when you're up against weaker teams. The only drawback is that the earlier you use your active in battle, the less Poxwalkers you get, which often means that you'll find this fat ding-dong oozing his way at the back of the battle doing very little except building up the effort to call a horde in. But if you want a horn suit to ring your bell, then Corrodius is the one for you. In at number 9 and down 5 places, it's Toth. And Mr. I'm Gonna Live Forever has dropped significantly because even though he really does live for a long time, he also doesn't really do any damage. He's like a rock on your team that just moves around very slowly and can essentially be ignored by the enemy until it's 1v1 and you end up slowly killing them over 65 turns. His survivability comes partially due to his Terminator armor trait, which means the first non-psychic attack or non-direct damage attack is reduced by 75%. So pretty much you waste an entire attack going after him. It also means he can't be suppressed, although since he does very little damage and moves slower than a slug, I can honestly say that I never even noticed this was part of it. The other thing affecting his survivability is his passive Time Flux, which not only tops up his health at the start of every turn, but if he does fall, then he has a chance to revive back to his Time Ghost. The only way to stop this is to stand on that ghost before killing him. Thankfully, it only happens once per match, so you can eventually chunk through him. In terms of attack, he isn't entirely useless in truth, it's just that he needs quite a specific team around him. For the Imperials, I dropped Exeter Row because of this, and the truth is, I think that Toth will fall off the back end of this top 10 list next time around, but his survivability just pips some other champions in terms of versatility. And so what team is it? Well, basically you want to stick him in with some champions that do psychic damage. Firstly, this is because his Thousand Sons Weaver of Fate's faction bonus, which means Toth deals maximum damage if there have been 3 enemies that have taken psychic damage already that turn. This also works with his Hellfire Missile Rack active ability, which deals heavy round damage to any target that has also taken psychic damage this turn. I actually really love to use this in conjunction with Ahriman, Typhus and then Varro, because it means that Toth can pound everyone in the battlefield with ease. It does really hurt too. Finally, he can also suppress targets, so he is a good character to nullify a chunk of enemies' damage. Just note, this only works with his range attack, so don't go standing toe-to-toe with Toth. So all in all, this son of Magnus has dropped in power this season, but if you want an invincible bag of dust and a beautifully coloured armour, then Toth is the one for you. In number 8, it's a new entry and it's Ahriman. Hot on the heels of his Thousand Sons brother comes one of the most powerful characters in the last 10,000 years of Warhammer lore, and he is one of my favourite psychers to play in the game because of his multi-hit targeting, third eye in the middle of his helmet, and his spiky magic carpet. And the reason he ends up in this list is because of that multi-hit targeting, which allows him to fly with grace into the Neurothrope Guildraid team, as well as to be a right pain in the third eye to a lot of different teams. Like Toth, he has the Thousand Suns faction bonus Weaver of Fates, which sees him deal maximum damage after 3 enemies have taken psychic damage that turn. And Ahriman is really a character that loves for everything to burn. I have images of V from Vendetta coming out of a burning building when I play Ahriman. His passive ability, Psychic Stalk, sees him boost any flame or psychic attacks that hit enemies standing on hexes that are on fire, with Chaos characters getting even more damage. It's a very tactical skill, and for long-term viewers of my channel, you will know that I really appreciate that type of complexity in my champions. It also means his ranged psychic attack actually sets hexes on fire too, so he really does like to burn baby burn. Then, once he has set a bunch of hexes on fire, he unleashes his Doom Bolt, which hits all the enemies within 2 hexes for a bunch of hits. Those hits are increased for every hex on the battlefield that is on fire up to a maximum of 9. And again, another little tactical treat for us with Ahriman is that if you back off a bit and kill someone with his ranged attack, then you get to fire Doombolt again. It's really wonderful, and if he was just a little tougher, then he would be incredibly high up in this list. But as a Psyker, he is a bit squishy. However, against teams that are equal level to him or are pretty mobile, he is a great pickup. So if you want someone that flies like Aladdin on a thorny magic carpet and pumps out enough smoke that he could stand on stage at an Adele concert and not look out of place, then Ahriman is the one for you. In at number 7, and keeping his place this time around, it's Angrax. And for all the abuse that the Black Legion take for being one of the weakest teams in the game, Angrax is always someone that can be relied on to make a mess of the enemy. Again, at the tail end of this top 10 list, I can't promise that he is going to be in every team possible because the Chaos characters are just nowhere near the power levels of the Imperium and the Xenos characters. But what I can tell you is that when you find a place for Angrax, he will certainly deliver. And that place is quite simply next to a spawning hole or 2 in legendary events, onslaught mode, or against weaker characters in the campaigns, because Angrax has one of the most magical abilities in the game with his Hateful Assault. Firstly, it has a lesser part to it where Angrax does a bit more damage if he moves into melee damage range, but the really interesting part is when someone moves away from him, because he isn't going to accept anyone leaving his side. He will bitch slap the life out of them, and because of his Black Legion faction trait, Let the Galaxy Burn, he has a 50% chance to damage anyone next to the runner as well. Angrax doesn't even care if it's someone on his team. As long as they aren't Chaos, then they're going to get some serious emotional damage. Just in case anyone is left alive though, his Bringer of Despair active will see him tear his Wolverine-like claws through an enemy, and also one random enemy next to it. It's a decent hit, but I expect to see either the numbers or the penetration improved on this attack in future. Right now, the Black Legion are getting some updates, with Harkon being the first, and I think Angrax and Abaddon are the ones who's going to benefit most, because they're already on the peripheral of my teams, and honestly, it's a travesty that they're not being picked more often. The last part of Angrax's kit is that he has a deep strike and Terminator armor, making him able to go headfirst into the enemy right from the start of the match, and he can take a hit or 2 while he's doing that. And these abilities give him a solid place on a certain Guild War attacking team that I have. Think of it as the cleanup crew that I send to finish a half-dead team. They aren't the highest leveled, but their utility is second to none. Who are they? It's my deep striking decisive dudes, Angrax, Baraquel, Aryak, Rask and Metanio, and they absolutely trash other teams with ease, and with Aryak's forehammer stunning any pesty actives and the others just stomping all over them. Give it a try and you too will understand its power, and no, there still isn't any Dante here. Stop pretending he's a good champion. So, if you want the Walrus, you want the Legion, then you want Angrax. In at number 6, it's a new entry and it's the Butcher Rask, and oh boy does this slab of beef bring a serious selection of traits and abilities onto the field. As I just mentioned, he has Deep Strike and is one of my deep striking decisive dudes that finish off teams in Guild Wars. But he has so much more than this in his kit. He is unstoppable, which means he isn't slowed down by pesky barbed wire, fire or ice. He will just keep plodding through it all with his incredibly beefy Terminator armor, which makes him a serious tank to be reckoned with. But this isn't another Toth with no teeth. Rask is a wrecking ball of damage as well, literally because his active, Bloody Fury, sees him swinging like a wrecking ball. It smashes into an adjacent enemy and scores extra hits for each time Rask has been attacked to a maximum of 8 hits. And that Fury will splash onto any adjacent enemies, prioritizing kills, which can leave a whopping great hole in the enemy team. And when he is attacking, his World Eater's faction trait, Blessings of Khorne, boost his damage and reduce any incoming psychic damage depending on the number of characters that have been defeated by melee damage this battle. He also has that familiar Rapid Assault trait that gives him 1 extra movement and a chunk of extra melee damage until he makes his first melee attack of the game. But one of the main reasons for his versatility in teams is his passive ability, Wrathful Devotion, which gives friendly adjacent Chaos units a really decent shield if he kills someone next to him, or when he deep strikes in next to them. This is really amazing in legendary events because he's guaranteed to be killing a lot of enemies, and that means his Chaos team is just more resilient than others. Overall, this Butcher feels like he's in a really great place, so if you want someone to burn the enemies while collecting those skulls for the Skull Throne, then Rask is the champion for you. In at number 5 and up 1 place, it's Typhus, who is one of the longest standing members of the Chaos team, although I'm not sure he is really standing anymore or just being held up by a festering pile of flies filling his armor. We've already spoken about the Death Guard team with Herodias, and Typhus shares the faction trait Contagions and Nurgle, so this Psyker strips the very armor from the skin of enemies with her filthy haze. And if that isn't enough, he will then follow up with a horrific Plague Wind that blows over the top of enemies and deals serious psychic damage to them. It's absolutely horrible for all enemies, and if you've ever been in one of those wave machines where you can't quite get your feet under you and you just keep getting pummeled by waves, well, imagine that, but the waves are sewage and filth. Yuck. And Typhus is really like that dude at work who hasn't showered for the longest time possible with his passive ability Destroyer Hive. This does a chunk of direct damage to a random enemy near him at the start of the turn, so you do not want to be stood too close to him. But Typhus certainly isn't just a piece of used toilet paper, because he has serious strength in his defenses. With the Resilient trait, the first time he would die in a round, he's only taken down to 1 health, and with Terminator armor slowing down the damage from enemies, he really is a super defensive champion, easily in the top 10 defensive champions in the game. So if you want a fat-horned colleague that hasn't showered in 10,000 years and is surrounded by a cloud of flies wherever he goes, then honestly, what's wrong with you? But that would be Typhus. In at number 4 and down 1 place, it's Abraxas and Yazagor. So I think all of us can point to Abraxas being the most important character in every one of those cool quest events where you get to play through a series of battles that are set up like a puzzle. You know, the ones that Nox Tempest always teaches us how to complete. That dude is seriously smart. For me, with the Chaos events, I just slap down Abraxas and use his active ability Malefic Maelstrom to spawn in a bunch of those weird horrors from the warp. There is the little sausage-legged pink horror that splits into 2 blue horrors, and then the flying manta ray things that do a lot of damage. And if that isn't enough, I use Yazagor to stick Abraxas next to another set of enemies, and then I hit someone with a psychic attack in the same round, and now we have another set of these monsters on screen. It's such a devastating attack, and it deserves its mention as one of the best actives in the game, and Yazagor plays a real part of that, which is why he's mentioned here as Abraxas' best buddy. The cool thing with these little horrors is that because of Abraxas' passive ability, Infernal Pacts, first this adds psychic damage to any ally's ranged attack if they're stood next to Abraxas, but then for the Manta Ray things, when they spawn in, they also get this to their melee attacks because they're demons. Why is it so important? Well, it triggers Abraxas' faction trait Weaver of Fates, which sees all Thousand Sun characters deal max damage if 3 characters have taken psychic damage, and that is easily possible with Abraxas, so he can set up the rest of them. He is a powerful Psyker that can really spawn in a lot of demons, and they clog up the battlefield worse than Typhus on the toilet. So if you want someone with upside down pyramids for shoulder pads and a goat for a best friend, then Abraxas is the one for you. In at number 3, and it's also down 1 place for Maladus. And oh my, it's yet another Death Guard on the list. That's 3 so far. Could it be a clean sweep of Death Guard here? With 2 places to go, it's still possible, but let's stay tuned and find out together. And with Maladis, we have one of the tankiest dudes in the game that also balances serious offensive power. And I'm not just talking about the fact that he's one of the most offensive characters to look at, he really hits hard too. But let's start with those defenses, because this thing is a real tank in the game. Starting with Terminator armor, he will almost completely absorb the first attack against him in a round. Then, if you do get through his armor, we will have to get through his sheer resilience, as he can block any final attack that would kill him, and instead it lowers him to 1 health. And all of this means that he's easily one of the top 5 defensive characters in the game. But like I said, he's not just defense, because offensively, like all Death Guard, he has the Contagions and Nurgle faction trait, which strips armor from the enemies, making them easy picking for this slug. But it's his passive and active abilities that really lead the way for him, because once the armor is stripped away from the enemy, he will bash their heads in with these 3 steaming balls attached to his flail. And this mighty flail swing really is a painful hit, because most people really don't want to have a steaming set of balls smashed into their face. It also works in combination with his passive, Haze of Corruption, which means that anytime he kills someone, that damage is carried over to an adjacent target to the initial enemy and Maladis, and then it happens again if that one is killed. It means Maladis can easily dispatch 3 enemies every turn with 1 foul swing, either using his active or even just a normal attack. It's incredible, and means he is such a powerhouse in many events. So, if you want something that looks and smells like a sweaty masseuse that'll whack your back with his steaming balls, then Maladis is the one for you. In at number 2, it's a new entry, Karn. Last time around he had just been released, and no one had quite got to grips with this maniac, but I don't think anyone can doubt his place on this top 10 list. And maniac is absolutely the right word for Karn, because he's just as likely to kill your own troops as he is the opposition's, and that comes from his passive ability, the Betrayer, because after he kills an enemy in the match, then at the start of all future rounds, he will run up and hit something. He will prioritize enemies, but if he can't reach them, then he's just as likely to smash the nearest ally to him, and his attack really hurts. In fact, under real battle conditions, he has the single hardest attack in Tacticus, and it isn't even close. So for that alone, I always would have him in my teams. That damage is boosted by the World Eater's faction trait, Blessings of Khorne, which boosts his damage and reduces any incoming psychic damage depending on the number of characters that have been defeated by melee damage this battle. And with Karn here, that is a lot. It is further boosted by his Rapid Assault trait, which adds 1 movement and a chunk of damage until Karn has made an attack in game. Just immense. His active ability, Kill, Maim, Burn, is not quite as punchy, but it can kill 3 enemies because, you know, it kills, maims, and burns. So it's not completely useless by any stretch, but definitely his power mostly lies elsewhere. The final trait in his kit is Final Vengeance, which lets him swing one last time as you're dying in battle. It's very appropriate for this maniac who just never wants to give up. And so if you want someone that is never going to give you up, but may occasionally let you down, then Karn is the one for you. In at number 1, keeping his place from last year, it's Nauseous Rotbone, and I don't think anyone can question this choice because he's always to be found in or around every Chaos team that you put together. You may not pick him, but you'll always consider him. So why is he such an important choice? Well, as a healer, when you quickly look at his kit on paper, you could say that he is a worse in sizes, and certainly no Isabella. But as we look closer, there are some really important differences that make him very relevant. Firstly, he isn't just a healer, he is actually a tank as well. So you play him more like a putrid paladin who keeps himself topped up while fighting through hordes of enemies. In battle, he's actually as tanky as Tyrant Guard, just without the benefits to those nearby that the Tyranid has. But he's resilient, so he's able to stop himself dying for 1 hit and then top himself up with health the next round. Like all Death Guard, he has a Contagions and Nurgle faction trait, which strips armors from the enemies so he can chunk through them as well. But the real power in this healer does come from his abilities. Firstly, his Revitalizing Malignancy active ability will heal all Xenos or Chaos characters around him. Chaos even get a lovely boost from this with extra healing. Then there is his passive, Tainted Narthisium, which once per turn has a 75% chance to revive any Chaos allies that fall in battle next to him. And this is why, on paper, He might look worse than Incisus, who has a 100% chance to revive any character around him, but the difference comes in the details, because only Rotbone ignores if the fallen character has been overkilled, and that's a massive difference, because it means there's a higher chance in Tacticus to revive someone due to the sheer number that will be overkilled. So that is why Rotbone is the number one most versatile pick for Chaos, and still one of the best healers in the game, and exactly the reason why you should be leveling him up and simply letting this hooded freak heal you to success. And that is our top 10 for 2025, and it's easy to see that they definitely need reinforcements desperately in order to bring their power levels and utility up to match the Imperials and Xenos. Death Guard really owned this list, with only Pastilian missing out. Let's hope for more options next year. But there is one more important piece of advice I have for you at the end of this series, which is that I feel you're all still taking Tacticus and my videos far too seriously. I'm just here to have some fun and make some cinematic videos where you also learn something. If you're looking for the top meta teams or theory crafting on mathematical best weapons to take, that's not what I'm bringing you. We have an excellent selection of content creators in Tacticus, some of whom are in the top teams in the game, and they are much better placed to do that for you. I'm here to show you the lighter side of Tacticus, and especially to find the hidden gems you might not have been thinking about, those champions that deserve a little bit more respect than they're getting right now. And if you pick them up, you might just reawaken that love for Tacticus to remind you on why you joined the game in the first place, and that this is a game where you should be having fun. It's not all about perfection or the grind. Tacticus is all about trying out weird and wonderful teams and seeing what works and what is downright ridiculous. Don't stick with the same old boring stuff day after day. So before you go and jump in the comments about how you personally don't like this character or that character, just remember that this list is the most versatile and flexible characters in the game for Chaos, and either way, all of them have their place in your lineup, but there are only 10 slots on the list, and I can't include everyone. So hopefully with that in mind, I'll see you next time for more cinematic fun and games.